Okay, so let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at a pretty radical way to rethink our economy. The idea is to move away from a system that, let's be honest, funnels wealth to the top, and instead build one that shares it right from the get-go. This is all about designing our way to a fairer future. And we're going to start in a pretty unexpected place, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know his famous line, "No pain, no gain"? It's all about pushing through the burn to get stronger. But what if that exact same idea has been shaping our entire economy for the last century?
And, well, there it is. For decades, a really powerful economic philosophy basically told us the same story, that for a country to get rich, it first has to go through the social pain of extreme inequality. It was sold to us as just a phase, a necessary evil on the road to prosperity for everyone.
Now, this wasn't just some vague idea. It actually had a name and a picture. It was called the Kuznets curve, and it looked like an upside-down U. It made this really attractive promise. Hey, don't worry about the inequality now. Just focus on growth, and eventually all that wealth will trickle down and even things out. The thing is, what if that promise was never real?
Because we know now from mounds of evidence that it was a myth, and a pretty damaging one at that. It turns out, extreme inequality isn't some law of nature we just have to accept. It's a choice. It's the result of how we've designed our systems. And that's the key. If our economy is unfair by default, then we can choose to make it fair by design.
So, how on earth do we do that? Well, it means we have to shift our whole approach. Instead of trying to patch up the problems later, we build the solutions right into the system from the very start. So let's explore what it actually means to be distributive by design. Here's the core idea in a nutshell. Instead of baking a giant economic pie and then arguing about how to slice it up fairly with taxes and welfare, we change the recipe itself. We design the whole pie-making process so that value and opportunity and wealth just naturally flow to a lot more people, not just a handful. And this visual really gets to the heart of it. We're moving away from that up and down roller coaster of the Kuznets curve, which just ends up creating a fragile pyramid. The new goal is to build a distributed network. Think of it more like a healthy ecosystem or a spider's web. It's resilient, it's interconnected, and value flows through all the different nodes, making the whole system stronger for everyone. So to build that network, we have to go right to the source code of wealth. This isn't just about income from a job. It's about who owns the fundamental assets in our economy. And that means we need to look at these 5 key areas. Who owns the land? Who gets to create money? How our businesses are structured? And who controls technology and knowledge? All right, let's get concrete and see how this actually works, starting with 2 of the oldest, most foundational sources of wealth there are: the ground under our feet and the money in our wallets. It sounds like such a simple question, right? But the answer has massive consequences for everything else. How we handle land ownership really defines our whole economic and political landscape. So, how can we redesign it? I love this picture. It's from over 100 years ago, but the point it's making feels more relevant than ever. Basically, this guy bought a piece of empty land, and his sign points out that if he sells it for a profit, that profit doesn't come from anything he did. It comes from the presence of this community. The value was created by everyone. So the distributive solution is to make sure that the value we all create together, goes back to the community. This could look like community land trusts where the land is owned by everyone, or it could be taxes that capture that unearned profit from rising land prices to help pay for public services. It's about sharing the wealth we all help build. Okay, let's move on to money. It's something we use every day, but we almost never think about where it comes from or how it's designed. But that design has huge implications for who gets rich and who gets left behind. So who creates it, and could we do it differently? Here is a brilliant modern example. Forget the giant centralized power company for a second. Imagine a local energy grid. Your house has solar panels, and you generate more power than you need. You can sell that surplus directly to your neighbor down the street. And a local digital currency handles the whole transaction instantly, peer-to-peer. That's distributive design right there. It creates a decentralized, resilient system and keeps that value circulating right there in the community. But this design revolution doesn't stop with land and money. Not at all. Let's see how these same ideas are transforming the world of business, technology, and even our ideas themselves. For the longest time, the goal of a business seemed crystal clear: make as much money as possible for the people who own stock. But a new story is bubbling up. What if the real purpose of a business was to actually solve problems, to contribute to a healthy planet and society
while also making a fair profit. It's a total redesign of purpose.
And listen, this isn't some fantasy. It's already happening. There's a whole ecosystem of different business models that are built on this idea. You've got employee-owned companies, where the workers get the profits. You've got cooperatives owned by their members. You have social enterprises that are legally required to serve a community purpose. Every single one is hardwired to be more distributive from the start.
And finally, let's talk about maybe the most valuable resource of the 21st century, knowledge. Who gets to own the ideas, the inventions, and the technologies that are shaping every part of our lives?
The economist Joseph Stiglitz doesn't mince words here. He says our current system of patents and copyrights, which was supposed to encourage innovation, often does the exact opposite. It creates monopolies on knowledge that end up benefiting a few big players instead of all of us.
But of course, there's an amazing alternative, what's called the collaborative commons. Think of open source software like Linux, or even better, check this out. This is a project by a guy named Marcin Jakubowski. He designed 50 essential machines, everything from a tractor to a 3D printer, and he just put all the blueprints online, totally free for anyone to use, to build, and to improve upon. That is distributing the power to innovate.
So, as we start to pull this all together, you can see this is about a really deep shift in how we think. It's about moving away from a story of enduring pain and toward a story of creating better patterns.
Remember where we started? No pain, no gain. Pushing that too far in the gym gets you injured. And pushing that same philosophy in our economy, the idea that we just have to accept the pain of inequality, has left us with a system that's brittle, unfair, and hurting a lot of people. The goal isn't to just grit our teeth and bear it. The goal is to design a better pattern from the start.
And that really is the core takeaway. The old story told us to just wait. Wait for growth to eventually fix everything. That story is broken. The new work, the really exciting work, is to embed fairness and equity right into the DNA of our economy from day one.
So the choice is pretty clear. We can stick with an old story about necessary pain and division, or we can start telling a new story, one about intentional, creative, and distributive design. The tools are there, the examples are out there and growing. So the only question left for us is, what are we going to design next?